Push-to-talk is great for a walkie-talkie, but a modern voice agent, we may want something else. A real-time, low-latency, full-duplex conversation where the agent can listen, think, and speak in the same flowing exchange. And maybe more importantly, interrupt it when we need to. That's Voice Live. Hi, I'm Rob Fulkrod, a lead technical trainer at Microsoft, and in this session, we'll cover developing a voice agent with Voice Live. We'll walk through the Voice Live API and look at the SDK for building against it, and bring it together by developing a voice-enabled agent. So let's get started. We're continuing in here with one of the Foundry tools. So this is a huge advantage here. We really don't care too much about what the underlying model is that we're using when building this agent. Instead, we can incorporate these same tools to create over the top of many, many different models. So we can see here, bring your favorite Foundry model, whatever that happens to be, and then using these Azure speech tools inside of Foundry, we can enable this Voice Live session. And you may have seen this in a number of kind of our handheld agents where we just naturally speak to the agent itself starts responding back in natural language, but back and forth, right? We've got that idea of full duplex, that I talk to it talks right back to me, but also with that ability to be able to say like, hey, hold up, wait, and then get your thought in. When sometimes agents tend to ramble a little bit and you got the point, and then you need to get on to the next thing. That ability to just interrupt and go, it's a pretty powerful addition to voice-driven applications. So when we enable the Azure Speech Voice Live, we get that real-time conversation. It connects. We get a bidirectional connection. So beneath the covers, you're going to see, for the technical folks, you're going to see a WebSocket connection made between the client and your application to start that session. Being that this is the Foundry tools in there, same two authentication mechanisms that we've seen up to this point. You can use the older API key, or you can use a keyless identity connection. Ideally, we're moving that direction. But it's more than just talking back and forth, right? There are a number of different advanced features that are pretty powerful. So the first is that you can decide what we're using in terms of audio formats. You can use the PCM16 format, which is an uncompressed standard audio format. The size, the payload is going to be a little bit larger, but you get full fidelity sound out of something like that. Or there is also the G.711 format, and this is a compressed speech codec. Specifically just has kind of that bandwidth, has the range for human voice. So it can be a lot tighter, a lot smaller, but still convey human voice really well. When it comes to voice options, many of you have probably moved through the list of voice options that your agent has and selected one specifically. We have lots of options when it comes to live voice. There are the OpenAI voices, but there's also a collection of voices available to us from the Azure custom voices, some of which we saw in the earlier example. We'll see them again coming up in a little bit more detail. There's also the capability, if you're building some sort of learning product, if you're building some sort of a documentation product, that you may want to have avatars on those systems. So there is avatar integration using WebRTC as a communication mechanism for both kind of video and animation that might be behind it. And we're often not using our agents in the best audio environments. So there is built-in noise reduction, echo cancellation. We don't want things like the voice that's being played over the speaker to be then picked up and sent back through that speaker. So native things like echo cancellation are already in there. Right. Now, I do wish that I could make it a little bit more complicated in terms of enabling it, but sadly, that is not the case. When you build your agent inside of Foundry, We have a checkbox, in essence, that you check to enable this. And at this recording, we're seeing this in preview. By the time you see this, it may be out of preview by then. But just toggling that switch, we then get a brand new panel to turn on live voice. We can then go through and either have it detect the language automatically that's being used, right? Or we can say, listen, I know the language ahead of time to speed up that initial connection just a little bit. But also then we can go ahead and configure the voice that we want it to use, right? This can be done programmatically as well. We're seeing this here through the portal, but programmatic access is available as well. And then we've got a couple other advanced settings that we'll take a look at in the example coming up. But yeah, I mean, that's the basics when you're here in the agent to flip that. Now, when we start looking at the SDK, we're going to connect up to the agent. We will set up some configuration for both what is the input device, right? So what is the microphone that's going to be in use? What is the output device? What is the speaker that's going to be set? And when those are both configured together, then we can go ahead and establish the voice live session. Then there are a series of events that are kicking off so that we can listen in for where we are. Did we establish a session? Do we have a response coming back? So our client device can understand where we are in terms of the conversation, so that our client device can understand what's going on in the conversation and indicate appropriately. We're really going to want to take a look at this. So let's dive into an exercise where first we'll just do the configuration of it, but then we're going to walk through the code sample, which there's a number of components in there that we're really going to want to take a look at. So first and foremost, we need to swing into Foundry itself and build ourselves an agent one more time. So we will go create an agent, and we will build that as a chat agent. And right away, we'll just give it a little bit of a prompt here. Drop that right in. So you're an AI agent that helps people find information about AI. So we're going to stick to the AI topic here. You answer questions concisely and precisely. Important here when we're going to have it talking that we don't get too verbose. So we're going to keep this down as much as we can keep an AI agent down. We'll just start with making sure that we've got the basics in place. What can you help me with? That should give me a bunch of stuff. Here without too much work. Lovely. We'll give that a save. We're in an okay place. But there has been a little checkbox, a little switch right here that's probably been staring at y'all in the face for almost 20 demonstrations now, where you've been looking at and you've been hoping, would he just click the button? Well, it is now time to click the button. So we will go ahead and click on voice mode here. I'm going to move this over just a little bit so we can see the pieces that we have. So the minute we go into voice mode, it is ready for us to start working. We got some configuration that we can click into first. So the first is, should we be auto-detecting language? So we could say, no, it's going to be one particular language, or we can let it auto-detect. There's no harm in having it auto-detect. Second is then picking what the voice is going to sound like. So it is Ava by default. We can go ahead and click the drop down here. We've got a few options available to us, but we also have more. If you were around a couple sessions ago, we did a couple different voices for our speech. And I think we had, who did we have? We had Serena first, and then I think we brought in Stefan. We've got a lot of voices that we can dig through. Now, for my demonstration here, I'm going to grab a male voice, since it's kind of representing me a little bit in here. So I will go with the male voice there. In terms of ages, we will just go kind of adult here, and we'll swing up a little bit further into our collection here. Voice capability here, what I want is going to be our context-aware voices. There we go. And we will go. Gosh, we can go back to Stefan from earlier. That would be fine. We'll go with Andrew. He can be pretty dramatic, and uh, so we'll do a quick little listen here.
From the research lab to the big industry players, we've got you covered.
Thanks, Andrew. I appreciate that. And we could go through and listen to all of these. We won't. I will spare you all that. I will pick Andrew and save. All right. And so now that we've got our voice in place, we've got a few more settings in here. One is the idea of an interim response. So an interim response is if the AI is taking a little bit of time, there can be a voice response saying, "Hey, we're working on it." And then proactive engagement, if there is a long pause, this can be a little probe for it to say, "Hey, are you still there? What are you thinking?" That type of engagement. We'll leave those off for now. Okay, we are saved. Now let's give it a check. So let's start. Got the microphone up and going. And hey, AI agent, what can you do for me?
As an AI agent, I can assist you with a variety of tasks, including 1. Answering questions. I provide accurate, cited answers on topics like technology, science, history, and current events. 2. Research. I find reliable information and summarize technical.
Real quick here, just give me one more bullet. That's it.
10. Language translation. I can translate text between multiple languages quickly and accurately.
Awesome. Thanks, my friend.
You're very welcome. If you need anything else, just ask.
All right. And so in here is also, we don't have a lot of screen space because I'm kind of blowing this up to make it easy to read. But we can see here, as I did that little cutoff, right? So answering questions there, he was going into research, and that's when I cut poor Andrew off. I said one more bullet, and so he jumped down to the last one, 10, language translation, and we got out. So this ability for us, as you see in other agents, you're talking to it directly, it's going off, you can do that nice little interruption. Okay, so this is a controlled environment, nice and easy here inside of the portal. But what does that look like for us in terms of code? Well, let's jump in. As always, we've got to set up an environment variable so it knows where to go. In our case right here, we are dealing with. Let me grab the right number. There it is. So 4790, we'll throw that right here, 4790. Repeat that for the project, 4790. And we've got the name of the agent that we decided earlier was chat agent. Quick save, and into the code. And like I mentioned in the introduction, there's a little bit more code in here than what we have seen in the past. Let me actually back up one step. We'll go into the requirements. The addition here of a new dependency in here, the Azure AI Voice Live, is the component that's giving us that back and forth voice communication. All right. So those have all been installed. Those are all sitting there ready to go. So in here, we're going to bring in the namespaces, including the voice live namespaces. There is a connect helper function. We'll take a look at that, setting up the bidirectional network communication that we're going to need, and then a series of classes that we're going to need for the configuration. Right. So when we jump in, a lot of same old, read our environment variables, use our CLI credential. In there, we've been kind of toggling back and forth between the CLI credential and the default credential. Doesn't really matter from this environment. And then here, voice assistant. So this is an internal class that we built, right? So this is for the demo itself. That is not part of the standard SDK. But to that voice assistant, we are passing in the endpoint and the credential, and then we're passing in our agent information, the name and the project name. Then we're just doing an async run, passing in the assistant and telling it to start. Great. Now, the assistant, again, our own custom class here. This is where we're really exercising the SDK, right? So in our constructor here, we're saving our information, we're saving our configuration, right? And then the start method, which is what you saw us beginning the whole thing with, this is where we really begin. So we start with the connect helper method. Again, that is creating a little WebSocket communication between client and server so that we've got this bi-directional network communication. We're setting up the endpoint, the credential, the API version, and then our agent config. Again, that was just the setup of name and project name. Then storing the connection for later. Audio processor, also one of our classes. Though the audio processor class here, its job is to do the back and forth, playing through the speakers, recording through the microphone, and it's going to be handling that back and forth to the live assistant. So we're going to let that go. There's not a lot. There's good Python code in here, but it doesn't have a lot to do with our SDK. What does is setting up the session. So next step, we're going to go set up that session, little F12 later. And you can see here, we are creating a request session and setting up that we are using both text and audio. You saw in the portal that when the conversation was over, we saw a text output in there. This session will have both of those instead of just one. Depending upon your medium, maybe you don't need the text response coming back and you only need the audio. That's fine. But here we will do both. We will set up the audio format that's going back and forth, and then a class here to handle turn detection. So this is where it allows us to have that interruption capability in there. And then just a couple other small configurations. Should we, if we had both speakers and microphone nearby one another, should we be canceling out the feedback so it knows what the output is and tries to cancel that? And then also, should we be looking for any noise reduction that might be going on in the background? So once we've got that set up, then it's we start the playback. So again, we'll dive into this. Here we're grabbing the bytes, and this is really just traveling, making those grabbing the bytes from the and in start playback, we are handling the audio that is being put through the speakers, right? And so making sure that as it's streaming in, that we are sending it out directly. And then finally, the last bit that we have in here is process events. So as we are getting all of that audio, there's a number of events that are going to be kicking off. And this is going to be the handling the display and what's coming next. So for example, if a session is updated, then we are saying, hey, connect up to the name and start any capture from the microphone. So we're grabbing audio processor, starting the capture. And then we can go through the list of events that are going on in here, whether we are starting some speech or we are starting the output. All of those events are kicking in, and you'll see we got nice little emoticons here that'll show us the results. All right. So that's kind of the start of it. Let's get a feel for how this works. We're going to do, we didn't change anything, so we don't need to do a save. We will open up the terminal here and let's start everything going. Chat client, come up with a decent question. Okay, good. Hey there, can you let me know what functionality you have?
Of course. Here's a quick overview of my functionality. 1. Information retrieval. I can answer questions about AI, technology, science, and a variety of other topics by providing up-to-date,
Okay,
concise,
that's
and
that's that's a lot of things. Sorry, I see the list on the screen right there. Uh, a, I'm actually thinking about closing out of this application. Can you tell me how to close out this Python application?
certainly. The process for closing a Python application depends on how you're running it. 1. If you're running the script in a terminal/command prompt, press Ctrl+C to interrupt and stop the application.
That's all I needed.
Alternatively,
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
you're very welcome. I'm glad I could help. If you ever have more questions or need assistance in the future, feel free to ask. Have a great day.
And over. So yeah, fun little script. At the end, we'll show you where to grab all of these labs so you can play with them yourself. But yeah, I hope that was helpful. Let's wrap this up. So let's see how much you remember. So what are the two authentication methods supported by Voice Live API? Hopefully at this point, you're seeing the patterns develop. That's Microsoft Entra, Entra ID, and/or an API key. How do you configure and test Voice Live agent integration in the Foundry portal? Just flip the switch, right? There's an enable voice mode in the agent playground. And how do you stop audio playback when a user interrupts the voice? There's an event, handle the input audio buffer speech started event. So in this session here, we learned about the Voice Live and its real-time conversation capabilities. We saw a little of the event-driven model beneath the covers. We understand that could be responding in a couple of different audio formats, the PCM16 and the G.711 format, either high fidelity or tight human speech specific codec. And then we looked at that SDK for establishing the session. Thank you for participating in this Develop AI Apps and Agents on Azure course. I hope you enjoyed learning about Voice Live as much as I enjoyed presenting the concepts. I encourage you to remain curious and continue exploring new capabilities. That's how we all stay relevant. There are many ways to continue your journey, and I invite you to search for your next favorite topic on Microsoft Learn at aka.ms/learn.